guys have done the same, and hopefully you'll learn not just some economic things tonight, but also some little strategies to hopefully get your students and keep your students engaged. So we're going to go ahead and start tonight. I am going to share my screen with you guys so that you can see my Nearpod. But let me give you guys a couple of little tips on best use, and then we'll go ahead and do introductions. If you've never used Nearpod before, you'll simply go to join.nearpod.com, and in the Nearpod screen, you'll enter the code. So the code that on my screen is OMNEI, and that will allow you guys to interact with a lot of the things that we are doing tonight. So it makes it a lot more fun. It makes it to where we're not just like sitting in a webinar. I like to call these more virtual learnings because they are interactive, and hopefully you guys will enjoy tonight. So again, I'm going to put the code and the link in the chat box so that you guys can join. I encourage y'all to do that, and we'll go ahead and get started on time. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Stiegelbauer, and I am the project director for SD Economics. Thank you guys so much for joining us in our first fall webinar. Tonight, we are going to investigate scarcity and COVID-19, one of my favorite topics, and really like to kick off the start of the year. How do we make econ and personal finance relevant to our students? So we are going to go ahead and begin. I've given you guys my contact information, but I'll also share that at the end. So you guys are welcome to contact me for any of these resources that you don't necessarily grab the first time. So again, my name is Amanda Stiegelbauer, and I'm the project manager at SD Economics. I know that we have Chandler Jordan on here with us already tonight, and she is our program director. Chandler, did you want to say hello?
No, I just want to thank you guys all for being here. We really appreciate y'all kicking off this fall webinar series with us. And we hope that you'll get lots of great content tonight, as well as like Amanda said, some ed tech tools that you can use in your classroom. And please, share out with your coworkers and your teacher friends that we're doing this. We still have a lot of spots open for the rest of the year, so we'd love to fill those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chandler. And it's just a joy to work with Chandler as well. Econ and personal finance, that is our true passion, and helping teachers really facilitate good learning for our students is really what we're all about. So if you haven't joined any of our webinars or PDs before or participated in our contest, please do check out our website. We have lots of free information and materials for our teachers and our students. I am also a classroom teacher, so I work part-time for SD Economics, thankfully, and I feel like I get the best of both worlds. So I get to kind of test out the things that we're doing and the brand new things that are coming through the econ ed world on my students at Blythewood High School. So I teach all econ all day, everything from AP Micro to CP Economics, but I've taught lots of other things in the past too. And so I just am super excited to share with you guys some cool information tonight, and I hope that you guys will find it helpful and enjoyable. So tonight, our objectives are, I can explain how cost-benefit analysis is used to make rational decisions, and I can use current events and other activities to build student engagement and understanding of economic principles. So I want for you guys to obviously be able to know the content and share the content accurately with your students, but also understand how we can bring in the news and current events and make things that are going on outside of the classroom relatable to students to help econ and personal finance come alive for them. So tonight we have several different things on tap for you. I'll go ahead and just one more time in the chat box, I'm going to post the Nearpod link for those of you who are just joining us as well. And that's certainly a choice. So tonight, what we're going to do, we're going to go through several different little activities that will involve you guys working individually, but also we'll encourage you guys to work in groups as well. So we'll begin with a matching pairs activity that is sponsored through Nearpod, some basic economics vocabulary. We'll proceed into a collaboration board tonight. And then I'll give you guys just some content overviews from time to time, but I hope that throughout the course of this, you guys feel like this is more of a conversation, more of a discussion, as we will engage in several activities. We will also go into some breakout rooms and a couple of activities tonight. So the first activity, we're going to look at some cartoons that are related to the COVID-19 pandemic, followed by looking at some content related to decision making and some statistics of the COVID-19 era. Follow that up with you guys working in groups in a breakout room to do a cost benefit analysis of your own that is related to the coronavirus. So I'm interested to see what you guys come up with. I tried this activity with my students and they really enjoyed it in their breakout rooms. And it's very interesting to see the different perspectives that each class was able to come up with. And tonight we'll follow up with a debrief and an evaluation. So please make sure you give us your honest feedback at the end. And also the evaluation is what tells us in the end if you have participated in 5 of these, which of course there's an incentive for. So our webinar series is focusing on the brand new South Carolina Economics and Personal Finance standards for the high school grades. However, of course, if you were an elementary teacher, scarcity and decision making, and middle school teachers, scarcity and decision making are right throughout your content standards as well. So there's something here for everyone. So tonight, the big econ standard that we are going to focus on is the first standard and indicator, EPF 1ER, examine how scarcity of time and resources necessitates decision making, which is something that we all do no matter how old we are, right? And we do this multiple times a day. So the first activity of the night is a matching pairs activity. And the matching pairs activity, I'll give you guys just a couple of minutes to run through it. And I hope y'all enjoy it. I'll continue to put the Nearpod code in for those of you who are just joining.
We had a password issue, but I think we're getting everyone in slowly. Just thank you guys for being patient and emailing me. I took the password off, so hopefully we won't get any unexpected guests. But hopefully we'll get everybody in too. I hate that we had that issue, but we're working through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Amanda, excuse me, let me just say, I'm Jim Morris and I'm the CEO for the SC Economics. And I just want you to know that, you've got a couple of folks here between Amanda and Chandler who are incredible classroom teachers. Amanda is still in the classroom. They are both AP reader, which is we've only got about three or four AP level reader qualified people in the state. So they're classroom teachers, they're AP level, they've taught at all levels. And so they've got some great ideas, and I hope you stay connected to them beyond just this classroom, because they make a wonderful help desk, for questions that you might have later on, because they are here, we are all here to serve you. So thanks for participating in this, and thank you, Amanda, for putting this one on, and Chandler also, because I know you do a lot of these too. So, thank you, Amanda, for putting this on, and Chandler, I know you do a lot of this also. So thanks a lot.
All right, so if you were just joining us, I know that we had some technical issues with the password. Thank y'all for being patient. I've also put again in the chat box the Nearpod code for tonight. So that is what I'm projecting on my screen. For those of you who haven't done Nearpod before, just make sure that you're on your personal Nearpod screen so you can see some of the activities that are going on versus your Zoom screen. So if you try to click on the Zoom screen in the Nearpod, it may seem like, oh my gosh, my screen is frozen, but make sure you just go to your Nearpod, which is another little blue spot. Okay, so yeah, you guys are happy. You're welcome to listen. It's not a requirement that you join the Nearpod. It just might make it a little bit more fun. So I'm going to just take a minute to debrief these matching definitions. And on my Zoom screen, this is one of the cool teacher tools of Nearpod. You can see how many matches your students had and how many attempts they had. So you guys are, of course, are like really smart cookies. But you can also see like who participates and who doesn't. So this is a really powerful tool as a virtual teacher, especially. But even like as you guys migrate back to your own classrooms and use technology, this is a really cool tool. So I hope you guys enjoyed that activity. It's just to introduce you to some basic economic concepts that we are going to discuss tonight. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the content. When we talk about economics as a whole, we define economics as a social science. So it's kind of one of those weird subjects, the sandwich between the social studies and a science, because we do some experimentation and we try to figure out how one thing impacts another. And really the basis of economics is what we're going to talk about tonight. The fact that society has limited resources, our resources are scarce, but us as human beings, we have these unlimited human wants, right? We just want and want and want all day long. So how do we satisfy those wants efficiently? And how do we determine what we get and who gets what? That's what we're going to discuss tonight. So I want to hear from you guys again. This is another tool of Nearpod, and it's one of my absolute favorites and the one that I use most frequently. My students use this one every day, sometimes twice or 3 times in a class. So this is called a collaboration board. And the collaboration board, what I'd like to see from you guys is, other than toilet paper, which is the most commonly cited example, what items have you had to do without? What items have you had to wait on or substitute during the COVID-19 pandemic? Some other ways of thinking about this are which items have been absent from the shelves of stores. So you can put in your thoughts below, you can type them out, or you can simply click on the picture and find an image. So I'll let you guys work on that. And we'll talk about some of those in a minute. Some items that you've had a hard time finding. All right, so we got a lot here. Ryan says Lysol, yes. Okay, so I am like coveting people who found Lysol. Just as an FYI, my best friend found Lysol and Clorox wipes, like totally like the 2 best things ever right now, right? At Dollar General, so FYI. Clorox wipes, paper towels, Anna, very good. Lexi says beans. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of those like non-perishable food items, favorite Mexican food. Yes. Hey, that's interesting. Bleach and hand sanitizer. And then I put a bicycle. So another cool thing you can do with a collaboration board is throw in a picture. That makes it a little bit more fun sometimes. So I know that for my daughter's birthdays, the twins one of them wanted a bike. Okay. And I don't know if you guys tried to look for bikes or jigsaw puzzles during this time, but they are like nowhere to be found. So we paid a pretty penny for a bicycle for her 8-year-old birthday. So yeah, all of these are ways or things that we've had to deal with as a result of this pandemic, whether it be supply chain interruptions, trade disagreements, things like that. All of these things are things that we have to figure out, like, how do we make decisions based on these scarce resources? I know that personally, still during the summer, we had not gone back to school yet. My husband and I took turns going to Target because we knew that they got shipments of Clorox wipes. We would be there at 8 a.m. to grab the Clorox wipes when they came in. So it's just one of those things. You know, scarcity forces us sometimes to wait in line. It forces us to make decisions on how we'll use our time and our money. And COVID-19, the pandemic, really has brought to life a lot of these for our students and us. Here are a couple of pictures that I took of people who were panic buying. A lot of that is not really due to scarcity, but it created a situation of shortage, right? So when we look at panic buying, I know this first picture on the right, this is from Costco. And nobody cited this, but I'm sure that you guys can remember many times during this pandemic, we went to grocery stores and we could not find meat on the shelves, right? So what do? I guess we resort to the next best thing, which is, of course, as Lexi said, beans, right? So we had to make some decisions about what we do buy at that point. Picture on the left also represents something that was flying off the shelves at that time as well. Bread. I remember one of my best friends in the neighborhood, she had a birthday, and strange request, what she wanted for her birthday, she wanted hot dogs, right? So as silly as that sounds, she wanted hot dogs for her birthday. But I think the scarcity of the situation, the fact that hot dog buns and bread, they were flying off the shelves, and it was very hard to replenish those. So you just don't know what you have until it's gone sometimes. So economics is all about choices, and I am sure that you guys have probably seen this graphic. This graphic was something, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, that I saved on my phone. And when I made decisions about whether or not I'm going out or not, this chart is something that I continued to consult, and I still do, but I have it a little bit more memorized and ingrained in my memory now. So when we make choices in economics, this is something that people do all the time. In economics, we call it cost-benefit analysis, but for our students, it's easy for them to think about like doing a pros-cons chart, right? They do that all the time, and you can be silly about it and say, how do you decide whether or not you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend? Or who to take to prom, right? You make a pros-cons chart. Or how do you decide which college to go to? You're making a pros-cons chart. So very similar situation with COVID-19 when we decided what places we were going to venture out to first, looking at the risk factors of that. Certainly impacted our decisions, right? So a lot of those low risk things are things that people kind of dove back into very quickly. But you also can look at some of the high risk categories and think of, well, a lot of people are still avoiding those high risk category places, right? So it's all about choices. We weigh our costs and our benefits, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little while as we make some different decisions about COVID-19. So in economics, we look at the fact that there are two major branches of economics, and one of them is micro meaning the very small level. So we study economics or economic choices by individuals, firms, which are businesses, households, very small scale decisions. Even though we think of like Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok as being like really large businesses, when you look at those in the scheme of the macroeconomy, they're still relatively very small. So one of my favorite businesses, and of course, one of my favorite families here from Full or Fuller House, just kind of some visuals to help us remember what microeconomics is all about. In macroeconomics, we really study larger scale decisions. So we look at the economy as a whole. So this is really when we start to look at state and national level government policies. We look at how the U.S. economy is doing as a whole, how the South Carolina economy is doing as a whole. And many times we look at those economic indicators like unemployment, inflation, gross domestic product, GDP. So those are some terms that we hear a lot in the news, and many times the things that we hear about in the news are more macroeconomics related. So I want to get you guys involved because I know that you guys want to talk to me and talk to us about 7 o'clock at night. You guys have probably, been doing lots of talking today, but I want to hear from y'all. So one of the cool things that I think is fun for my students to do, and they really enjoy looking at cartoons, whether they're political or they're just funny. They like to look at cartoons because it's just a different way of learning. So they're funny, they can get some humor out of them, but they can also see how they can use economics to analyze and think at the higher DOK levels. So I'd like for us to just analyze this political cartoon together, And there are 4 questions that are listed here before we do another activity with this. So the first thing is, looking at this cartoon, can anybody just kind of quickly tell us what the literal meaning of this cartoon is? What's going on?
Can't see it.
You can't see it?
No.
Toilet paper is a high commodity
Why do you say that, Vivian?
because we're guarding it with what? Armed guards. No one can touch my toilet paper.
I like it. So you see the humor in it too. Nobody can touch my toilet paper, right? Very good. Thank you, Vivian. And if you can't see the cartoon, you can jump over to the Zoom screen, or in the Nearpod, you can probably see a little bit better on the screen. Okay, who can explain the symbolism behind this cartoon? Let's take it a little bit deeper. Symbolism.
The toilet paper in the picture represents what the money would be on a armored car, either being picked up from a business or a supermarket, such as what is in the photo. And the guards are guarding it with their lives. You kind of see there might be some bystanders along the way who are looking, and they may be interested or have waited, such as some of us have done, in line to get toilet paper. And so in order for them to get the toilet paper into the supermarket without being attacked, they have those guns, and the men are positioned in place just in case someone jumps out.
Absolutely. Joyce, thank you so much for sharing. That was perfect. So lots of things really kind of going on in this cartoon, and that's one of the things that I love about cartoons. And you guys probably may have drawn some other things from the cartoon as well, which is why it's cool to discuss them together. So 3, how does this cartoon demonstrate scarcity, choice, and or opportunity cost? Opportunity cost being what we must give up in order to get something else. Any takers on this one?
I think it represents scarcity, and the fact that that obviously toilet paper was in demand and the supply was low, and so you had a perfect scenario for scarcity. And I think it's such a cool example for kids because they get it.
They do get it, right? Lexi, thank you. And you can also see in the background, kind of, you have to draw it out, the opportunity cost, right? These people are standing in line. So they must stand in line, and they're giving up their time in order to wait for this toilet paper, right? So the opportunity cost is that time that they're losing. So what do y'all think? Do you think that this is microeconomics or macroeconomics? And why don't we just type in the chat box? Y'all can give me like a chat box waterfall. Micro or macro? All right, gotta vote for micro, micro, micro,
Micro.
micro. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you guys. I think this one is pretty clearly a micro example because you have like a good, you have some workers, and then you also have like one firm here. But again, it's just a really good thing to discuss with students. And Lexi was right, the students get it. So another thing that we can do, and that you guys can do as teachers, I don't have the privilege of working with Zoom in my classroom. Everybody is like on a different kind of platform. So our platform is not as user-friendly as Zoom. I'll go ahead and tell you, okay, this is gonna be I think that Zoom creates a very seamless process of putting students in groups and sending them out into what we call breakout rooms. However, I work on Google Meet. And so I have to create my own like makeshift breakout rooms for my students by just scheduling different meets. and then providing them the links and hoping that they all get out by the next period. So it's not perfect, but I've never had any issue with it. And my students really like going off in their breakout rooms because they're able to actually see each other. And it's at that point when they actually start to turn on their cameras again, because they're in smaller groups and they're not as worried about like their hair and their nails and makeup and stuff. So what I'm going to have you guys do is we're going to take about 5 minutes in a breakout room. I'm going to send you guys an invitation, and I'm going to send you guys into 4 breakout rooms in the Nearpod, and I will also post a link in the chat box for you guys. But in the Nearpod, there is a Google Slides presentation, and it is labeled Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4. And you guys are given 4 different cartoons, but you're really challenged with discussing the same 4 questions that we just discussed in our large group. So what I'd like to do is take a minute and send you guys into a breakout room. So we'll do 4 rooms, not 14. And so you guys will have about 5 or 6 participants in each room. So I'm going to open those rooms now, and I will pop into each of those. What you will have to do is you'll have to join the room. That'll take you out of this room, and it'll send you into another room, and I will bring you guys back together at 7:31. So y'all go into the breakout rooms, introduce yourselves, and then have a little conversation about your particular cartoon. We gradually have people coming back in. I was able to hop into most of the rooms in 5 minutes. It's tough to like hop into all 4, but I heard some really good conversations and some really good thoughts, which is obviously what we want our students to do too, have good conversations and to learn from each other. And that's one of the reasons that I love the breakout rooms. Again, it's super easy to do on Zoom. And I heard like some other people talking in their breakout rooms about how they do it in their district. We have like Microsoft Teams, we have Google Meets, and then we have people in districts who can't send their students to breakout rooms because they're not monitored. So it's just very interesting, all of the differences that we have around the state. But I think another thing, just to be positive, like one of the great things about all of this technology is that we have so many opportunities. So that is one thing that I really enjoyed. So y'all just give me a little comment in the chat box, something that you learned or you took from your breakout room. We're not going to debrief all of these, but give me some feedback on how that worked for you guys. Okay, we got COVID-19 and how it impacted the stock market. Absolutely. We still see some impacts, and we probably will continue to, especially as we talk about potential for a vaccine. Spiders on the medical supply shelves. Absolutely. Those are really good. Yes, Cynthia, I wish I had Zoom instead of Google Meet too, because I think that it would be just so much easier for me and my students, but we have what we have, right? Yeah, so I think that one of the cool things about being in a breakout room is that you get to see people and you get to hear other people's opinions and their thoughts about things, because it's obvious that different cartoons and different subjects will have different opinions and different perspectives. And so that's really important for our students, no matter how old they are, to be able to appreciate and have positive discourse on. So thank you guys for being awesome professionals. This is very easy to work and very informative. Thank y'all for your feedback too. I think a lot of times one of the reasons I love Zoom and giving professional development is because it does allow you guys to actually see each other, and you can go into breakout rooms and actually speak. And a lot of times like these are more sit and get. So I am glad that you guys had that opportunity. Vicki said there's face to face. Yeah, all of these are correct. You guys are stellar students. So we're going to move on to segment 2 of the virtual professional development. We're going to talk a little bit more about decision making. So decision making is really at the heart of economics. Decision making is really something that we cannot avoid, because in economics we study this fundamental problem of scarcity. Scarcity is something that we see every day, and we have to figure out how to deal with every single day. So when we look at scarcity, we have to make decisions on the best use of our limited resources. In the webinar next week, you guys will talk about what those resources are and how societies do make even more decisions based on them. But we look at our resources as our labor, our land or natural resources, our entrepreneurship, and our capital resources. So all of those factors of production that help society function and grow over time. In economics, especially in microeconomics, we look at the fact that as individuals make rational decisions, it involves cost-benefit analysis. And in many fields, you talk about benefit-cost analysis, cost-benefit analysis. This is not something that is like a brand new thing or just for economists. Economists also are very notorious for thinking at the margin or engaging in marginal analysis. So what does all this mumbo jumbo mean? When we look at cost benefit analysis from a totals perspective, we look at trying to get the greatest net benefit. So when we calculate our total benefit and our total cost, we have the largest difference in favor of our total benefit. However, when we look at things from a marginal perspective, marginal meaning the additional benefit or the additional cost one incurs, we seek to pursue actions always for which the marginal benefit or the additional benefit is greater than or equal to the marginal cost of something. So that sounds like a whole bunch of theories. What does it actually mean? It's actually really simple. So when you think about marginal benefit and marginal cost, think of as something as simple as a student going to a vending machine. And when they go to a vending machine, they pay $1 for a bag of chips, or they pay $1 for a candy bar or a bottle of water or Gatorade. They perceive that that snack that they buy is going to give them at least $1 of additional satisfaction, right? So the cost, the marginal cost is $1, and they perceive that they will either get $1 of benefit or greater than that. So it's really just as simple as that. Economists have looked at cost benefit analysis regarding social distancing, sheltering in place, and lockdowns. So when we relate this to COVID-19, we can look at, well, what were the benefits of like all of this shutting down, right? So the EPA measures the value of a human life at about $9.5 million over the course of the person's life, okay? Human life is very valuable, obviously. They estimate that potentially shutting down the economy for a period of time would save about 600,000 lives, which would amount to a benefit of $57 trillion. Long-term health issues could also be avoided by those people not contracting COVID-19, and we still don't know all of the long-term health impacts. However, we could save $1 trillion over time, thus making the total benefit of social distancing and sheltering in place for a time period around $58 trillion. That's a lot of money, okay? It's bigger than our economy, right? But we also have to think about the costs. And when we're in a situation like this, it's very easy to look at the negative side, right? When are we ever going to go back to school? When are things going to get back to what we call normal? But economists looked at a lot of the costs for sheltering in place, and they perceived that the cost of a potential lockdown was about $1.3 trillion. Now, let's be fair. Let's add some of the government spending into that, and we're up to about $4.3 trillion nationally, right? But still, there is really no comparison. The benefits of social distancing and a potential lockdown for a period of time far outweighed the potential costs, right? We can look at states that decided to reopen late, and we see that as they decided to reopen, their cases did not rise as much. Okay, so there are some benefits from that as well. They could continue to function, and I know New York, they said that they are planning to open their schools next week. They were the epicenter, right? Whereas you look at states like good old South Carolina, who opened early, and what we saw was a really big resurgence of COVID-19, right? So we have to think, what are the costs? What are the benefits? What are we willing to accept and not accept here? So there are some monetary things and some numbers that we can place on this. The average coronavirus hospitalized patient cost about $30,000. It's a lot of money. In South Carolina, since we reopened, just calculated today, we have had 2,953 additional deaths. Okay, there were 124 prior to this. We talked about the EPA measuring the cost of a human life or the value of the human life. And then a rise in outbreaks. I know that you guys probably saw the same chart that I did over the summer, where, you know, the United States, and we sectioned it out into different states like South Carolina and Arizona. We were at the top and right next to like Bahrain as a country. So pretty crazy per capita infection rates. The benefits of opening early, however, are also pretty great. So the earliest openers saw the greatest changes in the unemployment rates, macroeconomic principle, than the late openers. Georgia's restaurants, South Carolina's restaurants really saw a lot of increase in traffic, of course, and that's only risen since then. Small businesses would be able to function and continue to operate instead of shutting down for good. And then, of course, with that comes taxable income, taxable sales that can also be gleaned. So those are kind of like macroeconomic concepts. Let's take it down to a micro level and talk about just personally, what are some—
Amanda?
Yeah.
Well, before you leave that topic, you know, sometimes we put things in terms that may not necessarily reflect, they sometimes reflect our personal beliefs. So for instance, when you have tax benefits, when you open businesses and you have tax proceeds that come in, those tax proceeds are used to resource mental health. They are resource Medicare. They provide funding for teachers. Which right now we don't have that funding. So there's an awful lot of human things that come with taxes that come with opening the businesses, if that's possible. So, and then there's other costs, you know, when you close a business in terms of mental health, child abuse, and a whole bunch of other things. So there are a lot of, it gets pretty complex. So
yeah, we could go on and make a laundry list on both sides. You're exactly right. But yeah, so we have lots and lots of things that we could continue to list, and we certainly don't want to like get political or opinionated about it. But let's talk about these from a macroeconomics or microeconomics perspective. So here are some of the things that I considered, and these are things that I considered as a worker, as a mother, as someone who contributes to society here in good old Lexington, South Carolina. Here are some of the costs for me. During the lockdown, man, how many tanks of gas did I buy? Not very many, right? I actually just got my first oil change since the pandemic this past weekend. So the cost of our car maintenance, I don't know about y'all, but I gained some COVID weight during the pandemic. And so I had to buy some new clothes as well. Money spent in restaurants again. That's one of the things that I miss most about kind of quarantining myself, right? You can also look at things that are a little bit harder to measure, like traffic being back. We really noticed that this week in Lexington, and everybody was like wondering, why are there so many people on the roads on 378? Well, it's kind of back to normal here. People are in school, people are going back to work, right? And then we also think about some of the benefits. Okay, so eating out again, that's important to me. I like to eat out. Mama don't cook on Friday. That's the rule in the steakhouse. Entertainment opportunities, right? Going to the zoo, going to gyms. My girls are really involved in like sports and dance. That's a really big benefit for us, right? And then potentially the most important thing for my husband was that he could get a real haircut, right? No COVID cuts. So those are things personally that we valued, and everybody, of course, is going to have some different personal things that they value. And Jim made a good point about the fact that we have like mental health. I know that is a huge consideration, especially for our children, that we have to think about during this time. So speaking of our children, just some funnies. This is one of my favorite cartoons to kind of come out during the pandemic. We're talking about sending people back to school. Should we not? And this cartoon really kind of hits at the essence of, well, we took our kids out of school when the fire first started, when we had our first COVID cases, and now we're considering sending them all back. And COVID is kind of like, you know, at its height here. So just some funnies along the way. Teacher funnies, I know that you guys will appreciate this one. Imagine a substitute teacher being asked to teach a classroom full of children who were just exposed to COVID-19 by their previous teacher. Yikes. So we're dealing with scarcity, of course, again here. So what do we do with all of this? So one of the activities that I did with my students on the second day of school to teach them about cost benefit analysis is I sent them into little groups and they were assigned some major topics surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. And they did a cost benefit analysis to try to determine what their group's decision would be. So they had to engage in some discourse and had to be okay with agreeing to disagree in some cases. So I'm going to give you guys a simple example, and then I'm going to allow you guys to go in your breakout rooms and figure out what you would do in your situation. So in my simple example, should I go on a date night during the COVID-19 pandemic? I have to consider some costs, right? These values that I've placed here are kind of arbitrary values based on my personal feelings about going out to eat on a date night during the pandemic. So I've placed some negative values based on some potential costs for me. Y'all will notice that potential exposure to COVID-19 is one of the biggest. That gets a -9. And I'm just going on a scale from 1 to 10. Okay, anxiety is a big thing for me. Is it really worth it, right? And then looking at the benefits below, the benefits I assigned positive values 1 to 10. So for each of these I listed 4 just to be simple. But 2 of the big ones for me were getting out of the house, right? I assigned a value of +9. And then the mental health and relationship benefits +10. So when we add these up, for me, and of course, again, this is just my personal decision, my decision got a positive score, positive +7. So that means that my decision was to go out. The benefits outweighed the cost in my situation. On the other hand, if you got a -7, then you should probably stay at home, right? So this is just a very simple cost benefit analysis. And you guys in your breakout rooms will look at some different items. Should you be the first to get the first COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available? Should we allow evictions and foreclosures? Should every child be required to be vaccinated before going back to face-to-face learning? Mail-in ballots in November. All athletics, right? So all of these are topics that have a lot of opinions. You guys are adults and wonderful. And I know that I can say, be respectful and mindful that everybody is different and be respectful of their opinions. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to open the breakout rooms for you guys to go back into. And what I'd ask y'all to do is just make a copy of the document that I've placed on the Nearpod. I will also place a copy of the document in the chat box for you if you want it that way as well. And in your groups, I'd like y'all to create your own cost benefit analysis. What you will see is on the second page, I have given y'all my example. You can simply just use that as a template for your examples. So I'm gonna go ahead and open those rooms. I think somebody had a question in the chat. Okay, never mind. So I'm gonna open those rooms and y'all can go ahead and go in, and we will come back at 7:58. All right, looks like we are returning. I heard some good conversations. That's what it's all about. I heard a lot of really good lead-ins, like this is just my opinion, but, and that's wonderful. That's something that we want to share with our students, because those are things that kind of show them like we are entitled to have opinions, but other people will have different opinions, right? And the things that you guys talked about are pretty controversial, right? People have some really clear opinions. So if y'all will just give me a second and type in the chat box, I want to know kind of what your decisions were. We won't have time to share out all of these, but in your classrooms, you could take some time and have your groups share out. That's what we did the following day. So for groups who didn't finish, you know, we assign that as kind of their homework to make sure you finish your cost benefit analysis. And then obviously, we shared those in the very next class, and they really enjoyed sharing those out. I had several groups who did the last question about fall athletics being resumed, and I was so, I mean, really super surprised that most of them chose to not resume fall athletics. It may just be the classes that I had or the district that I'm in. We're all virtual. But yeah, so yes, we have some good responses coming in. If y'all will give me like a little brief synopsis of some things that y'all considered. Age factors, personal differences, absolutely. And I think Erica, you were referencing your activity was about the vaccination, right? So personal differences and then personal situations too. I heard your group having some really good conversations about like who's in your family, the job situation, the family situation, underlying conditions. Yeah, Lexi, I think that that's a really good point. Different opinions are important to be heard. You know, if you guys have seen some of the other webinars that we do, we talk about students and we get in this echo chamber of people who think like us, talk like us, and have the same opinions. And it's really confirming to be around the same people who have the same opinions all the time. But I think it's really important to get outside of our comfort zone and just listen to others, as you guys were doing. Benefit of the vaccine, which surprised us all. It was a close margin, really close to call. And then Lexi says the importance of voting and how to demonstrate that to our students. Joyce, I heard your group 2, talking about long-term versus short-term with evictions. That was a really deep and wonderful conversation. So that's the purpose, right? We want our students to be critical thinkers. We want them to engage in positive discourse and know how to do that effectively and respectfully, just like you guys just did with each other. So we enjoyed that activity. I hope that you guys did tonight as well. And we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. So I want to give a little plug right quick for our South Carolina Financial Literacy Master Teacher Program. Throughout the course of our webinar series, we will have several master teachers who are hosting these webinars for you and sharing economics and personal finance topics with you. And this is a program where we attract K through 12th grade teachers. And sponsored by the Treasurer's Office and the Future Scholar Financial Literacy Master Teacher Program in the 529 plan. But we incentivize these teachers to get professional development and share professional development with other teachers around our state for up to $1,500 at the gold level. So if you're interested, please reach out to us or visit our website. And before you leave us tonight, we ask please that you go to the evaluation link and give us your honest feedback on how you enjoyed what you enjoyed about the webinar tonight, how we can improve in the future. And then of course, if you are going to kind of be in the running for the $100 incentive for attending 5 of these in our fall series, we really need to know your information so we'll know where to send your check and to keep track of you. Any final thoughts from you guys? Thank you, Chandler, for posting that in the link in the chat box. Thank you, Brooke, for coming. We had an excellent time. If there are any resources that you saw tonight that you weren't able to grab, you are welcome to reach out to me and I'm happy to share them with you. And we'll also send you guys a follow-up email with the resources as well. Thanks, Erica. Thanks, Joyce. Thanks, Vicki. Thank you. It was so nice having you tonight. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Lexi. Yeah, I hope that you guys are able to take some of those things, use with your students, whatever that looks like for you.